Hi, folks. Calvin McMahon here from the great state of Louisiana, the home of what's known as the sportsman's paradise. But if I'm being perfectly honest, we don't do the work on our lands here to make our wildlife feel like it's a paradise. And that is why myself and my two boys, Grayson and Tucker, have decided to start Southern Habitat Solutions. We wanted to make our little corner of God's green earth the true paradise for our wildlife. And when we first started trying to do that, we found that there was very little talk about habitat improvements in the Deep South. Sure, you can find plenty of guys to help you in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Kentucky, and even as far south as Missouri. But down here in Louisiana and Mississippi, there's just not much talk about how to make your property a great habitat. So now I'm going to turn it over to my son Grayson and let him talk a little bit about our property.
So this is our property layout on Huntstan, and we live on what many would say is a small property. Our property is 52 acres, with about 40 of that in closed canopy forest, as you can see. All this in about 12 of that is old fields, two old fields. We have one in the front and one in the back, which is comprised of mainly cool season grasses and things that we do not want. Now, the target animal that we are primarily focused on is white-tailed deer, but we do also have a 1 acre duck pond, as you can see in this back bottom right corner, which holds occasionally a group of wood ducks, and we've seen some other like ducks like teal and gray ducks on the pond. So we want to focus on topics that landowners in the South would be interested in for their hunting grounds. We will cover topics such as like forest stand improvement, which is FSI, compared to TSI, which is timber stand improvement, habitat techniques such as hack and squirt, girdling, but girdling and spraying is another one, failing a tree, hinge cutting a tree, failing a tree and treating the stump, burning versus disking, food plots, waterfowl habitat, trapping, and any other ideas that you listeners would like to talk about. And if you do want to talk about any topic, just put in the comment section down below, and we will do our best to try to get to that comment. Okay, moving on to our first topic. Where do I begin improving my property for that wildlife paradise? Let's start by looking at an aerial view of our property here in South Louisiana. Now, we have what you call a perfect square 52-acre property. We have two dry creeks. As you can see, one of them is moving about middle of our property, and then one on the top right corner. Now, our property is pretty hilly for southern Louisiana property, which means we have somewhat of a contour on landscape. Even though it's not much, I'd probably say our highest elevation is about 35 to 40 feet in comparison to the lowest point on our property. Now, one of the first things that we want to talk about is before you do anything on your property, because it's one of the hardest lessons we've learned, is that you need to make a plan on how you want to approach your property to make it into the desired habitat you want. Because once you've made some of these improvements that we are going to discuss, you can't go back. It's like when you cut down a 100-year-old tree, you can't get that tree back. So we want to make sure that we know exactly what we want to do on our property, where we want to have our food plots located, where we want to have our tree stands, how we're going to access those tree stands, and what kind of forest stand improvements we're going to make for what particular objectives we have. For example, if I'm going to create a bedding area, I need to have thick cover for the deer. If I want to have a good staging area for the deer to come and feed before they go into the food plots, this requires a different stage of growth for that particular plant community. There needs to always be a why we're doing this improvement. And more importantly, each improvement needs to be connected to the next improvement. It's like we're creating the perfect vacation experience for our wildlife, in this case, the white-tailed deer. We want to give our deer not just what they need, but what they want in our habitat improvements. Because if you focus more on what a deer wants to have, that in turn will make the deer in your area want to spend more time on your property rather than your neighbors, giving you more opportunity to harvest that target deer that you're after. In this video, you'll notice that there's little to no vegetation because this is a portion of the property that we've done no management to, and also because of the leaf litter and the closed canopy above, it's not allowing adequate sunlight to hit the ground, producing no food and no cover, and you can also see straight through the woodlot, which is not desirable for deer. This portion of our woods was burned about 2 years ago, and we did it in the wrong order by doing FSI, or forest stand improvement, after we did the burn. And as you can see, it's just a jumbled mess of trees all over the place, and the leaf litter built back up within 2 years' time. This is an example of a successful burn we've had over the past 3 years, and as you can see, there's a major difference between this portion of the woods and the other ones we've seen. And the first thing you notice is the growth that's on the ground versus in the canopy of the trees. And look at all the cover and vegetation that it provides. And this is due to doing forest stand improvement before the burn and using the trees, the dead trees, as fuel. This is one of the burns we're going to be doing this year. And as you can see, we did go through and do some FSI already. And I don't know if you can see very well, but there's a bunch of snags in there, which are trees that have been top killed. We do have a little bit more FSI to go through. We can probably kill a few more trees before we actually start burning this year. But you can also see that the canopy is a lot more open, and now there's a ton of fuel for the fire to burn with intensity. This is an example of pine trees being too close together, and they do block the sunlight, but also we're trying to promote food on our property, and pine trees do not provide food sources for deer. This is an example of a girdle, and a girdle is when you take your chainsaw, cut a full circle around the tree, cutting through the cambium layer, and we use a formula that Dr. Craig Harper came up with, and it's 50% triclopyr, 40% water, and 10% imazapyr. You have to do it in that exact order that I just said, because if you don't, it'll become a big blob of goo that you cannot spray through your spray bottle. But once you make this formula, then you just spray it within that area that you cut, and your tree should die in about 6 months. Another goal for this year is to get rid of muscadine and greenbrier, because they'll grow up trees and shade them out or choke them out. As you can see, our field is mainly comprised of cool season grasses and broom sage. We want to encourage broom sage to grow, and we want to get rid of cool season grasses. The reason we want to get rid of cool season grasses is because, as you can see in the video, when they die, they create this carpet over the ground, not allowing sunlight to hit the soil and create vegetation. Some other species of plants we have in our field are fennel grass, goldenrod, and some blackberry bushes, and all three of these species are great for cover and bedding, specifically for white-tailed deer.
That concludes our video. If you enjoy this type of content, remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, comment down below any suggestions for future videos.